Good evening everybody, welcome to Atlas Tabletop Gaming. Tonight I will be bringing you an entire army review of probably one of my most favoritist? Is that even a word? Who cares? My favourite army of pretty much all time really. And it is, wait for it, drum roll please, Mother Trucking Grey Knights. Whoop whoop. So this codex was released in 8th edition. Start of 8th edition, which is pretty shit. I think anyone that's ever played Grey Knights will agree. There are some really good things in there, but on the whole it sort of let us down a little bit. And then what Games Workshop did, which was really awesome, is they started doing something called Psychic Awakening. And when we eventually got our book, we then were blessed with, ta-da! Ritual of the Damned. And I won't go into too much detail in this intro. The dogs have literally just come home, so hello Bruno, bugger. But Ritual of the Damned is basically made Grey Knights really good again. So this, along with this, is really good. And basically what we want to do in 9th edition is this book to have sex with this book and produce a ultimate codex child, which will be really good and really awesome. And I really love playing Grey Knights, and I'll go into a little bit more detail why. But yeah, we need these two to have some sexy wexy time and produce the ultimate Grey Knights codex for 9th edition, because I really like Grey Knights, as I keep saying. And if you know me, you know how much I love the Grey Knights. And yeah, I will then, so what I've got now in front of me is my entire army. I'll go through each unit and why I've picked it, I believe the army is around about 4,500 points, and yeah, you guys are in for a flipping treat today, because these guys are really cool. And stay tuned, and we'll go into the army in a second. Okay, so what I wanted to, cheers Karl. What I wanted to do is just show you the army a little bit before we go into the video. So like I said, it's 4,500 points, and there's plenty of infantry. I've only got 5 vehicles, which are the 5 rude boys at the back, and we go into those in a minute. But yeah, so that's pretty much the army. A load of HQ choices at the front, leading from the front, as they say. And yeah, really proud of this force. It's not fully painted, but fuck it. How many of you guys got all your armors fully painted? I know I haven't, and I've been doing this hobby 22 years. So yeah, we will now go into a step-by-step unit review, why I like them and all that sort of good stuff. Thank you. Okay, welcome to the video guys, and like I said in the intro, we're going to talk Grey Knights. Before you can see all my HQ choices for my Grey Knight army. So what I'll do is I'll literally just run through each one very quickly. I'm not going to bore you with all the sort of details and stuff. So at the front, we've got Lord Karl Drago, which is a really cool guy. If you hear his backstory, he basically lives in the warp, hunting down demons, chewing the fat, and basically being a badass. He generally turns up when the Grey Knights need him the most. Which is a normal thing for GW to have special characters to come in just at that right time and save the day. Why I like him is he is just an absolute badass. A lot of people will say that he is an auto-include in your army, and sometimes yes, I think he is worth the points, and he will always do some really good stuff. He comes with the Stormbolter, the Titan Sword, frag grenades, crack grenades and psych out grenades, which is sort of a standard across the board for Grey Knights, for characters and all that sort of good stuff, apart from the Titan Sword, which is a +4 strength, AP 4, damage free sword. He's weapon skill 2, and he has 5 attacks, 6 on the charge because of Adeptus Astartes. which they do have that keyword. He also gets And They Should Know No Fear, Demon Hunters, and Rites of Banishment. Bane of Evil, which is when a Grey Knights unit within 6 of the Drago makes an attack against a demon unit in the fight phase, you can reroll damage rolls for that unit, which is quite nice because a lot of the Nemesis weapons are D3 damage, so having that ability to reroll that is quite nice. He has the Storm Shield, which is now a 4-up and +1 to your armor save, so he starts off with a 1+ armor save, which is quite good, and a 4-up Invuln, which is also relatively good. And you can deep strike him as well, and he is the Chapter Master, so you can reroll failed hits for friendly Grey Knight units that are within 6 of him as well, so he gives a little bit of buff to your army. So yeah, I mean, by the rules you could say he is an auto-include, and yeah, I would agree with that on certain games, especially at 2,000 points. At 1,500 points I wouldn't take him, possibly depending on what I'm playing against, but at 2,000 points definitely auto-include. And then I have Grandmaster Vodus, which is this dude right behind him, which he has a special Thunder Hammer, which gives him obviously ×2 strength, AP free, damage free, but no minuses to hit, which is quite good because he's got weapon skill 2, so in combat he's an absolute beast. And he's about the same sort of points costing as Drago, and again it depends if I want to take him or not, if I take him. So then moving on to there's a lot of actual HQ choices for Grey Knights, which is quite cool, which is my Brother Captain, which is this dude here. He comes armed with a halberd. You'll see throughout the army the majority of it will have halberds, apart from a couple of models that I've picked up along the way, but anything I've brought, I've armed my units with halberds, which is an expensive way to do it because the actual box itself is quite nice. You get 10 to build 10 guys, and they can either be Purifiers, Interceptors, Strike Squads, Purgation Squads, and you choose between which one you want, which can be annoying because you don't get all the halberds you want in a box. You definitely don't get all the falchions you want in a box, but we'll go into that in a second. So that's just a Brother Captain, and generally I would always take a Brother Captain, just purely because he has a special buff called Psychic Locus, which is basically when a friendly Grey Knights unit within 6 of any Brother Captain manifests the smite power, double its range. So basically Grey Knights have a baby smite, which is called Rites of Banishment, which is the unit manifests the smite psychic power has a range of 12 rather than 18, and the target unit suffers only 1 mortal wound rather than D3. However, if you're against a demon, because these guys should be absolutely badass against demons, it causes 3 mortal wounds instead of D3, and we're going to Tides of Battle in a second, and I think I'll do that after I've dealt with the HQ choices. And there's a way to buff that to get 4 mortal wounds against demons. I think I started collecting Grey Knights at sort of start of 7th, maybe a little bit into it maybe. And I've only ever played against demons once in all this time, and that was against a chap called Neil, who brought his Khorne demon army around mine one Christmas. It was me, my mate Phil, Neil and his mate Sam, and Neil brought his Khorne army and basically my Grey Knights, mortal wounded, and took him off the board. It was hilarious, and I felt a little bit bad for him, but that was the first time I ever faced demons. Never again, which is really strange. So Brother Captain, predominantly I like to give him Force Halberd because he gets it as well. I also like to give him a a Psy Cannon, which is a weapon that you can give him, just because it's cool to give your HQ that. He hits on 2s, but obviously with a heavy weapon he will then hit on a 3. And he can cast psychic powers as all Grey Knights can. They've all got their own psychic powers as well. But yeah, I tend to take a Brother Captain over Vodus and Drago every day of the week. So at the back then I also have 3 Librarians. Librarians are really, really cool, especially in Grey Knights. They all come in Terminator armour, they can all cast 2 psychic powers and can deny 2, which is quite good. They're relatively cheap. They come with that 5 weapon, and they also have that Psychic Hood, so you can add one to your Deny the Witch tests. You take this model against enemy cycles within 12, so you kind of want to get them stuck in. And what I want to do now is bring in the Ritual of the Damned book, because there's a relic in there that makes Librarians really, really good. So when we got the Psychic Awakening relics, Ritual of the Damned, sorry, we got Tides, and Tides are really, really cool. So I'll just go through them. So, Masters of the Warp. Units with this ability gain a bonus depending on which of the Tides of the Warp is dominant. If you have a battle-forged army, units only benefit from this bonus if every unit from your army has the ability, excluding servitor units. At the start of the first battle round, choose which of the Tides is currently dominant. The dominant Tide can subsequently be changed using the Warp Shaping Psychic power. Now, Warp Shaping you can only give to characters, so you tend to want to take a Librarian with that power. And with the new Psychic Awakening book, Grey Knights were given a new Psychic Discipline, which we'll go through in a second. So, Tides of Fury. Whilst this Tide is dominant, when resolve an attack made with a Nemesis weapon by an infantry model with this ability, you can reroll wounds rolls of 1. Yeah, that's okay. Tide of Convergence. Whilst this Tide is dominant, add 1 to the strength and damage characteristics of side weapons that infantry models with this ability are equipped with. So there's some really cool stratagems in the main codex that allows you to turn Stormboaters into side weapons, which is really good. So you can add 1 to the strength and damage of Stormboaters, and I believe the stratagem you can add +1 to the strength anyway, so you know you're getting strength 6 Stormboaters, which is disgusting, especially when every model in your army has them. And Stormboaters are really, really good this edition. And then you have Tides of Shadow. Whilst this Tide is dominant, a unit with this ability receives the benefit of cover to its saving throw, even while it is not entirely or on within a terrain feature. When resolving an attack made with this ranged weapon against a unit with this ability, while it is entirely on or within a terrain feature, subtract 1 from the hit roll. So if you don't get turn 1, you want to kind of try and start in Tide of Shadow, so it gives your army that little bit more survivability. And that's what Grey Knights always sort of struggled with, is that first turn alpha strike from opposition that you would play. You would find that your army was getting depleted very, very quickly, and Tide of Shadows is a really, really cool one. That gives you a little bit more survivability in turn 1, and it's not all about getting turn 1 now as well in 9th edition. So, Tides of Escalation. So this is the last one. Whilst this Tide is dominant, when a unit with this ability and Rites of Banishment ability manifests the Smite Psychic power, and it is not resisted, that power inflicts 1 additional mortal wound on the target. So before the GW changed it, you could basically just keep rolling the Smite and getting 2 mortal wounds, which basically at 12 inches was okay, closest target obviously, but you can literally smite things off the board. And again, against demons, you're doing 4 mortal wounds. Yeah, so you could effectively combat squad, take a unit of 10 and then combat squad them, so you have 2 units of 5, and then you can then cast 2 smites, which is really, really cool. But obviously at the start of life, GW changed Grey Knights, nerfed them a little bit, and basically they now have that if you cast Smite on an X amount, then the next one's 1 higher, then it keeps going and going and going. So there's a little bit of a nerf to Grey Knights, and we had our fun while it lasted, as they always say. So what we will now do, I just wanted to cover that with the Librarians. How I normally arm my Librarians is with a warding stave, and I also like to give one of them a relic called Santic Shard, which basically, when a psychic test is taken from a model with this relic, you can reroll the result and add 1 to the total for psychic tests taken for this model with this relic. So you can reroll the result and add 1. Grey Knights always add 1 to their, as long as the army is bound, add 1 to their psychic power. So if you need a 5, it's a 4, and with Santic Shard, it's a 3. And I will just go into the new psychic powers. It's not really new, it's just I just want to explain it with the rest of the army. It's called Dominus Discipline, and basically Warp Shaping so you can change the tide, and there are some little sneaky snooze you can do. So yeah, you can with warp shaping change it to something else on one of the tides, which is really cool. And it's a little bit of cheeky tactics as well. And there are some really cool powers in there. I won't go into them, but there are some really cool powers in there that will make and buff your army quite nicely. So what we'll now do is we'll get rid of the HQ choices, and then we'll go into the troop. I won't show each unit of troops individually. I'll just explain one unit and then tell you how many strike squads that I have, or Terminators that I have, and go from there. Okay, so troop choices then. I have strike squads, and how I like to arm them is Stormbolters and Halberds, because they're really cool. And I also like to chuck in a side cannon, and it's always nice to have some extra firepower in a squad. And these guys pretty much do all the heavy lifting and get the job done. They're not relatively fast, but if it's not, it's good just to stick them on an objective and just keep them there, and they will claim that point for you. One of the things to add, I have 3 units of strike squad infantry, 1 unit of 8 and 2 units of 10. The 2 units of 10 are armed exactly the same, but the unit of 8 has got a silencer, a couple of swords and a Thunderhammer, and these are units that I've picked up over the years rather than purchased and built myself. I really like strike squads. Again, you can combat squad them and turn them into 2 units of 5, which really helps with smites if you want to spam smite, but obviously now it's a lot more difficult to do that with the smite escalations. And yeah, so basic paint job on them, bit of silver, red, relatively easy to paint Grey Knights, which is probably why I chose them, because I'm not the best painter in the world. Now, you know, with these, they're your basic troops. You can take Terminators as troops, and I will go on to them next. So there's 2 troop choices for the Grey Knights, or Chapter 66 and Sons of Titan, and I will show you them very quickly now. The great thing, or the bad thing with Grey Knights, is that the Paladins and the Terminators are the exact same models. So you can either go, oh, these are Terminators today, sweet, okay, and then next week, oh, these are Paladins, and I'm going to Paladin bomb them. They're the same model, so why the hell not? Okay, so we will now go on to the Terminators. Okay, so on to Terminators. I really like Terminators. In my Black Templars, I have 1,000,001 Terminators. I really like them. And again, the way I arm these guys is they come with a halberd, Stormbolter, and there isn't one here, but normally, yeah, there's a side cannon. So that's I normally run them in squads of 5. I do have 23 of these guys, so if I wanted to, I could do 2 squads of 10 and put a lot of pain and hurt onto people, which Terminators really can do, because there's some awesome stratagems in the Grey Knights Codex that really buffs up your Terminators, like reducing incoming damage and stuff like that. Especially on Paladins, it's extremely strong, and you see that quite often in competitive lists. White Halberds, you get +1 strength. It's -2 AP, and it's flat D3 damage, which is always nice to have that D3 damage. All Nemesis weapons are D3 damage, and it's, like I said, it's just quite nice. It's just a basic Terminator squad, so weapon skill 3, ballistic skill 3, movement 5, strength 4, toughness 4, wounds 2, 2 attacks, obviously 3 on the charge, leadership 7, and a 2+ armor save. You get the standard sort of 5-up invuln, which you get with them, and you get they show no fear. Demon Hunters, which allows you to reroll 1s on the wounds. Teleport strike, and right to banishment, and then you get to pick a psychic power as well. Generally with these guys, you either go Sanctuary, which gives you +1 to your invuln, which is quite nice, makes them a little bit more survivable, or you can go Gates of Infinity, or you can go Hammerhand, which Hammerhand's a really cool power which adds 1 to your wound roll. So if you're wounding on 3s, you then become 2s, which is really good against stuff that's toughness 6, 7 and 8, which you need 5s to wound on. It turns them into 4s, just makes that a little bit easier to do some wounds and damage, which is always quite nice to have. So yeah, so great thing with Grey Knights is you get a lot of Terminators if you want to. You can play them quite well with just strike squads, I've found over the years, but Terminators are your sort of meat and veg of your army, and they're really fun to play. And you know, if you are going to do Grey Knights, it is an elite army. You very rarely have a lot of models on the board, which is okay, because generally you've got the tools and the equipment to be able to get you in mess and get you out of mess relatively easy as well. So I will now go on to the elite choices, which I do have a few for Grey Knights, because as you all know, in 8th edition, stuff like banners and apothecaries became choices of their own, whereas before they used to be in your actual units and you used to rock about with them, but we can go into them in a little bit more detail in a second. Wait a minute, Carl, those are the same models. We're not on elite choices, are we? Yes, we are, my friends, because in Grey Knights, the elite choice of Terminator is called a Paladin, and Paladins are flipping amazing if you've never played against them or played with them. So what's a Paladin, Carl, if they're that good? 5 movement, weapon skill 3, ballistic skill 3, strength 4, toughness 4, wounds 3, so they get that extra wounds. 3 attacks, which is nice for 4 on the charge. Leadership 8, so they get a little bit of leadership and attack buff and wound buff. Save 2+ as normal. They come on with storm boaters, frag, crack grenades, psychic grenades, all that sort of good stuff. Oh, if I haven't mentioned, psychic grenades. Each time you hit a roll of 6 with this weapon when targeting a psychic or a demon, that target suffers a mortal wound instead of the normal damage, which is quite nice because it's grenade D3. So you can actually, you know, if you come against psychers or demons, that's actually quite nice to throw. It only has a 6-inch range, but that's standard with grenades. If you're that close, why not throw a few grenades? A few fuck grenades, as they say. So why is the Paladin so good? It sort of boils down from the Ritual of the Damned as well, with the new powers or what have you, but it's also a few of the stratagems as well that they get. So basically they call them Paladin bombs, and you basically just jump him in with the deep striking, and you get something called, oh, that's the Dark Angel stuff. We don't hear about Dark Angels. There's a Grey Knights video, Karl, shush. So it's called Fury of the Proven. Use this stratagem in any phase. Select one Grey Knights Terminator unit, because they are Terminators, until the end of the phase. When resolve an attack made by a model in that unit, add 1 to the hit roll. So they're hitting on 2s for 1 command point. And then you have Masters of Combat. Use this stratagem in the fight phase. When the Grey Knights Paladin unit from your army that has been not chosen to fight with this phase is chosen as the target for an attack. Until the end of that phase, when a model in that unit is destroyed, then before that model is removed, it can fight as if it had been chosen to fight, which is quite nice. So if they die, they get to do some cool stuff as well and fight. And then you have Transhuman Physiology, 2 command points. Use this stratagem on a Grey Knights unit from your army that is not a vehicle or a servitor is chosen as a target for an attack until the end of that phase. When resolving an attack made against that unit, an unmodified wound roll of 1 to 3 always fails, irrespective of any ability that weapon or that model making the attack may have. So basically you can have your strength 455 million, but you need a 4 to wound them for 2 command points. So again, it gives them that survivability, and you'll always put an apothecary next to them, and we all know what apothecaries do. Apothecary, basically the Narthasium, which basically any units within 3 inches of the apothecary contains a wounded model. It immediately regains D3 wounds, and if a model is slain on a D6 on a 4-up, a single slain model is returned to the unit with 1 wound remaining. But if he doesn't do that, then the apothecary can't do anything that turn. So they are extremely powerful. You basically drop them in and sit them on an objective, or really, you know, if you want to be a bit of an arsehole with them, you can, where is it? Dynamic insertion. So for 1 command point, basically your Grey Knights can deep strike 3 inches away from your opponent. You can't charge, but it's very irritating if you take a unit of 10 of these guys and just deep strike them 3 inches away from your opponent. Your storm bolters are going to be double tapping. Like I said, if you're on that right side, your storm bolters are +1 strength, -1 AP. And if you then spend the command point, and it's very CP heavy to do, called side bolt ammunition. Any bolters or storm bolters, hurricane bolters, fires are improved by 1 this phase. For example, a heavy bolter strength 5 AP1 becomes strength 6 AP2, so strength 4 becomes strength 5 and becomes AP1, and then with the tide it becomes strength 6 AP2. AP2 Stormbolters on a unit of 10 is about 40 shots, which is an absolutely ridiculous amount, and you're hitting on threes because you're Grey Knights, which is really, really cool. So that's Paladins. I really like them. I don't take them on pickup games because you don't want to upset your opponent too much, because they are overpowered. And if I wouldn't necessarily take them down the club unless I say to a guy, I'm going to bring a competitive list. Please do so as well, so that both of us on that same sort of wavelength, and one of us doesn't come just to romp stomp the other, which isn't a great game for anyone. So I will now move on to the other elite choices. I've already mentioned the Apothecary, but I'll bring the Apothecary and the Paladin Ancients in as well, because they're really, really cool. Okay, so my other elite choices, I do have another squad of elites which I'll bring out in a second. But here we have a Paladin, what are they called now? They don't call ancient, they call them ancients, and two of those. I haven't painted the one, but I've painted the first one, and then two Terminator Apothecaries. I'll just mention them so I won't go into them. Halberd, swords, Stormbolter banners. And what the Paladin Ancient does is the Sacred Banner, you bring him next to your Paladin squad. Adds +1 to leadership characteristics. In addition, models from the friendly Grey Knight infantry that are within 6 make 1 additional attack. So they will get 5 attacks on the charge rather than 4, and 5 attacks at strength. 5 AP2 D3 damage is very, very effective. Trust me, I've done it many a time. There is a really cool banner that you can give the Paladin Ancient, which is like a relic. Let me just find it. It's Relics of Titan, and it is called the Banner of Refining Flame. Paladin Ancient or Brotherhood Ancient model only. The Banner of the Refining Flame is a sacred banner. A model equipped with this banner loses the rights of banishment ability. Boo! Instead, when the banner manifests a smite psychic power, it only has a range of 6, but it inflicts D6 mortal wounds instead of D3. Whether or not the result of the psychic test is more than 10. So that's quite good. D6 mortal wounds, just for a relic, is really, really nice, and it's a pretty model too. Yeah, so they're quite good. I only really take these guys if I'm doing Terminator spam, just give them some buff and attacks and all that sort of good stuff. But other than that, I generally won't take these unless I'm in a really competitive game, which doesn't happen as often as it probably should, especially in lockdown. So I will now move on to the Purifier squad, which I have 2 of, and talk to you a little bit about those guys. Okay, so in front of us we have the Purifier squads, and I really like Purifiers. I think before the 8th edition codex they used to come with like 2 wounds, but they only have the 1 now, and they're basically a strike squad, a little bit of beefy strike squad. And what you might have spied is the original metal ones at the back, which are really, really cool. A chap called Alex donated these bad boys to me a while ago. And I really like them because they're metal models. So the guys in front are sort of your standard plastic on the 25mm base. That's how old these guys are from my army. And yeah, really, really like Purifier. So what do I like about them? So Purifying Flame, when this unit manifests a smite psychic power, it only has a range of 3 inches, but it inflicts D6 mortal wounds instead of D3, and you can combat squad them. And how I generally arm my Purifiers is with the sort of really cool flamer that Grey Knights have. Let me just find the rules for you guys. Again, halberds as best as I can because I really, really like the halberds. Let me just find it. I do apologise, I should know this off the top of my head, but I don't because I don't know everything. It's an incinerator. It's a soak D6, strength 6, -1, 1 damage, automatically hits its target. Now, 8 inches seems quite a long range. You can't really deep strike and get within 8 inches. But again, it's called dynamic insertion, and this is how I really like using these guys because of the Purifying Flame is D6 mortal wounds. I like to set up 3 inches away using dynamic insertion with 1 command point, which is really quite cheap. And basically deep strike these 3 inches away and then just Purifying Flame and do a D6 smite on something. The potential to do between 1 and 6 mortal wounds for about 60-90 points. is relatively nice and good fun to do, and it can upset people. Again, you've got the Storm Bolters on there and the Flamer as well now, so you know, if you want to take out an infantry squad that's sat on an objective that you want, these guys are absolutely built to sort of get rid of them, no problem at all. And again, they're just your basic strike squad: weapon skill 3, ballistic skill 3, strength 4, toughness 4, 1 wound. Hopefully, because a lot of Space Marines have had the updated 2 wounds now, when the Grey Knights new codex come out for 9th edition, hopefully we will see these guys get 2 wounds, which will make them that little bit more survivable. They will definitely get it because they're Adeptus Astartes, or they're not Space Marines, they're a different breed of Space Marines, I would say, the way the fluff is written for these bad boys, and they're always fun to read about because they're demon hunters. This is what they do, they kill demons. And what I love about it is whenever you hear about them in the fluff or whatever, if you encounter a Grey Knight Space Marine, they wipe your memory. You know, back in Armageddon War 1, when demons invaded Armageddon, the Grey Knights were sent along with Space Wolves and the PDF forces on Armageddon and Sisters of Battle, and the Grey Knights obviously prevailed and won, and they wanted to wipe the minds of everybody involved, and that wasn't, you know, there or thereabouts. So the Space Wolves didn't like that, and they stopped them killing the civilians, and they ran away, and there was almost a big scrap between Grey Knights and Space Wolves, which is really cool. But yeah, no, really like the Grey Knights. So that's Purifiers. What we now do is go on to fast attack and then heavy support. Okay, so we are now on to the fast attack choice, and I really do like an Interceptor squad. So I have 36 Interceptors in this army. I have 30 armed the same way and a spare 6 not. So the way I like to arm them is I like falchions, double falchions, storm bolters, and a silencer. I'll explain what a silencer is in a second. Falchions give you +1 attack. So pure Interceptors are 1 attack basic. They get the +1 on the charge as well for Space Marines, and then you get another one, so you get 3 attacks basic. They're strength user, which is strength 4, and they, I believe, are -2 D3 damage, which is quite cool. So it's a strength 4, -2 D3 damage sword. A unit, each guy gets 3 attacks on the bounce, and storm bolters, which are really, really handy as well. And the silencer, which I haven't really mentioned silencers, because it's only my Interceptors that actually have them on. And let me just find it. Silencer is heavy 6, strength 4, no AP, but D3 damage. Now if you wanted to, you could make that with cyber ammunition, or the tides +1 strength and AP, which is really, really helpful, which is nice to do. Yeah, the great thing about the Interceptors is they have personal teleporters. So basically you can pick them up and drop them 9 inches away from an enemy unit, and you can only do that once, but there is a stratagem for 1 command point that allows you to do it again. So with Interceptors, if you run Interceptors, you have to be aggressive. You can't really hold them back. You want to get them at the board as quickly as you possibly can and do some damage and take out key targets, because that's what they're designed to do. You know, I'll go through a review of the army afterwards, and how I play them, but you have to be aggressive with these guys. If you sit back and sort of be passive with them, they will get shot off the board because they've only got 1 wound. They're only a Space Marine, they've only got an armor save of 3, they don't have an invuln save. So the best way, in my opinion, to use them is to just charge them straight up the board and start being a menace to your enemy. Because especially if you run 2 squads of them, your opponent doesn't want 20 jetpacking Marines within 9 inches away from them with storm bolters, falchions. They're going to try and charge, they're going to do damage, and your opponent, I promise you, does not want that to happen. So they're actually very deadly. They are a little bit more expensive than strike squads, but on the whole, really, really worth it. Always pay back the points, and I really like using them because they're so bloody fast. So yeah, that's Interceptors. I got 36 of them. The other unit of 6 that I've picked up randomly has a flamer in it, a sword, 2 swords, or 3 swords and 2 force halberds. Not really the way I would run them. I like falchions on them, so they get into attack, they slicey, choppy, and they can do a lot of damage, especially with that D3 damage as well. You'll be surprising out of a unit of 10, 30 attacks on the bounce, doing D3 damage is really, really nice. Be interested to see what GW do with these guys in the new codex. What really bugs me about these guys, as you probably noticed from the models, is these little pissing antenna break off all the time, and it's a pain in the ass. But other than that, really, really like them. So what I now do is I go on to my heavy support. Okay, so moving on to the last unit in my army. I say unit, but unit as it were, is the Dreadknight, or the baby carrier, which they are more commonly known as. There's basically a little Terminator, oh bless him, sat inside it, controlling the... so the Nemesis Dreadknight, it is a movement 8 inches, ballistic skill 3, strength 6, weapon skill 3, toughness 6, 12 wounds, leadership 8, and a save of 2+. There's a 5-up invuln save, and you can arm them a variety of ways. So the best way to arm them, in my opinion, is a heavy side cannon, a Nemesis greatsword, which are a pain in the ass and they snap off, a Gatling silencer. Now, what those weapons are: Gatling silencers, heavy 12, strength 4, AP 0, D3 damage weapon. Now don't forget, you can buff that with your time, so it could be a strength 5, AP 1, D3, which is going to kill Space Marines. Side cannon is strength 7, AP 1, 2 damage, and it's heavy 6, but again you can improve that to strength 8, AP 1, or AP 2, sorry, and 2 damage. Again, that is killing your Garden Variety Toughness 4 guys, no problem at all. And the great sword is +4 strength, -3 AP, and flat D6 damage. So on the charge, these guys get 4 attacks basic, obviously 5 with the Marine special rule, which is quite nice actually. Back in 7th edition, which is when I bought this bad boy, as you can see it's armed with a heavy incinerator and a side cannon and a greatsword. What the heavy incinerator used to be was a big torrent weapon, so it had like 12-inch range, then you got the flamer template out, but that is gone. It is now a range 12, heavy D6, strength 6, AP 1, flat 2 damage weapon. So it's okay. It's not the greatest, it's okay. But what you find, the other 4 are armed exactly the same, which is heavy silencer, swords, and heavy side cannon. Now, the other way to arm this guy, if you wanted to, is take him as a Grandmaster in Nemesis Dreadknight. So through 8, if you move, your heavy weapons will -1 to hit. So if you're these guys and your ballistic skill 3, you then become ballistic skill 4, which is an absolute flipping nightmare. A lot of people would run them as a Grandmaster. The stats are pretty much the same, except they're ballistic skill 2 and weapon skill 2. So, and they get a base 5 attack rather than the 4. Higher leadership by 9, or +1. So on the charge you get 6 attacks, hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s, which was nice. Made them really, really good, but also made them a really big target and people would shoot them off the board. And the way to sort of get around that is to arm them with a Dreadknight teleporter. Basically what that allowed them to do was to deep strike, which was pretty much it. And the other thing with the Grandmaster is they get a 4-up invuln save. And generally what you used to do is cast Sanctuary on them, which is +1 to their invuln, so their invuln went from a 5 to a 4, which is really, really nice. And they get 1 psychic power or 2 psychic powers if you take them as a Grandmaster. It's really, really up to you. These 3 need painting, these 2 are pretty much done, so I need to get my paint game on. But Dreadknights are really cool. They should be stronger. I think toughness 6 isn't great. Considering when you look at Nurgle guys, they're toughness 5 and they're just a Marine. So it would be nice to see them getting a little bit of buff, and there's some cool stratagems that you can use to sort of make these guys a little bit harder. So pretty much guys, that is my entirety of my Grey Knights, and sort of like a closing comment around Grey Knights is I think in the right hands they can be really, really good and do a lot of damage to people, and they can take people by surprise. And what I mean by that is that if you play Grey Knights passively and sit at, oh wait, there is one more squad I need to do, but I'll do that in a second. If you sit back and play them passively, you're not going to do well in your games. Grey Knights, you have to be aggressive, you have to push forward and put a lot of hurt on people where you can. I mean, the range of our weapons maximum is about 24. I know there's a lot of people out there that will take Dreadknights with las cannons. Land Raiders aren't really worth it. Flyers aren't really worth it. So you kind of do want to be foot slogging it. But they are surprisingly fast, especially with psychic powers like Gates of Infinity. So if you want to put your, say for example you get turn 1 and you want to put a strike squad on an objective on the other side of the board that your enemy are more than 9 inches away from, basically Gates of Infinity allows you to pick up that unit and put it where you want, as long as it's within 9 inches away from an enemy model, which is great. So it gives you that board control, and people don't expect that from a Grey Knight's armies to have that board control very early on. But especially if you run 30 to 20 Interceptors with that ability to move extremely fast, Dreadknights, deep striking in, Terminators, deep striking in, you can, if you want to, control the objectives within 2 turns and ask your opponent to come at you and try and take you off them. And again, with Tides of Convergence, they're not easy to shift these days. So I'm quite happy with the way Grey Knights are. They got a little bit of nerf coming into 9th, which is the smite power, which is okay. You can't have it always every way that you want. And yeah, really like this army. I need to paint them. I think I've got about 30, yeah, about 32, 33 models left to paint. Considering it's all infantry, it shouldn't take too long. Relatively easy to paint them as well. You know, spray them lead voucher, non-oil, or the blue wash, and then just highlight or dry brush, and then just do the detail with the gold and the bits and bobs, which is quite nice. So yeah, what I'll do now is I'll move on to the last unit, and I completely forgot them because they're hidden and I really like these guys, so I'll quickly go through those guys for you now. Okay, so the final unit in the army, which I completely forgot because they were hidden over at the back, but you know, is what it is, are the Purgation squads. And these guys are really cool. They're basically like Devastator squads in Space Marine armies, but they come armed with the Grey Knight special weapons. And how I arm them is 4 side cannons. I give the Sergeant or the Justicar a force halberd just to give them an invulnerability save. But generally you kind of want to put them in a building or something like that, and use astral aim, which allows you to fire without line of sight. The range of the guns are only 24 inches. But as you know, with Tides of Convergence and stuff like that, you can really buff the strength output of these weapons. And because they're not a heavy side cannon, they, I believe, are only strength 6. Let me just double check that for you guys. Yeah, so that's your strength 7, AP 1, flat 1 damage. So in the right tide, they can be strength 8, AP 2. You cast astral aim on themselves, and then they're able to ignore cover and remove line of sight, which is really strong in 9th edition. They're like a mini arty unit. They are heavy weapons, so as soon as they move, they're -1 ballistic skill, which is boo. But other than that, I really like them. The unit's relatively cheap as well. I think it's just over 100 points for the unit, which is cheap just to have a little bit of heavy firepower, not really needing line of sight and ignoring people's cover at strength 8 -2 is really helpful. Each one of these guns gets 4 shots, so you're effectively coming out with 16 shots from a unit. You can put silencers in with these guys as well, which again is really nice because it's every 6 shots. So they can do a lot of hurt, and they're surprisingly, like I forgot about them. People forget about them until they start shooting. So yeah, so that's your Purgation squads. Really like them. Relatively cheap, good heavy weapons choices, and you can give them that force halberd, so that guy gets a 5-up invuln. And if you want, you can cast Sanctuary on them to get that to a 4-up, just to give them that little bit more survivability if you so desire. So yeah, now I will wrap up the army with the last squad. I've always liked Grey Knights. They've had a rough time over the years because they should be really good at killing demons, and all they really get against demons is real 1-to wounds and the smite, and I just feel like they should be a little bit more stronger, especially now that 9th edition you have Slanesh demons sort of tearing up the sort of competitive scene, and Nurglings and all that sort of good stuff. You know, the counter should always be Grey Knights, not another Space Marine army. So yeah, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe to the channel. We bring between 2 to 3 videos out a week. Generally it's me talking about an army that I have or a list that I like. We will be doing battle reports as soon as we're allowed to out of lockdown. But yeah, please like, subscribe, hit the notification button. I think that's the right way, and so you never miss a video. Thank you for watching, and I will speak to you all soon. Stay positive and have fun wargaming.